So, folks, we got to talk about JD Vance, Viktor Orban, and Hungary. Because a really incredible thing happened over the last several days, which is that JD Vance was, of course, sent off to Hungary. I've talked a little bit about this, that JD Vance, despite talking about how awful and meddling the European Union has been to the poor, hapless state of Hungary, that then saw fit to go off and meddle in their elections directly while stumping for Viktor Orban. You know, I don't think we have to look too far into the public perception of how this was perceived. Let's, of course, head over into the poly markets. Let's take a look at how the politics betting world thought about this.
Live from the Poly Market studio in LA.
And, well, you know, you could see a pretty clear event here take place that caused the market to split among some pretty definitive lines. And, you know, I do have to say, I don't put any stock into the betting markets for predicting much, but I do think this is a very funny graph. And that's all I really have to say about it. Other than, yeah, we should ban things like Polymarket and Kalshi, but, you know, that's for a different time. So, apparently JD Vance was not content with allegedly killing the last pope. Now, he also has to kill authoritarianism in Hungary. In a way, in this circumstance, JD Vance is a quite an agent provocateur. You know, he's gone in and destroyed an entire dictatorship that was built up over the past 16 years. Yeah, that's a talent. That's a rare talent. Like, why aren't we sending this man to like North Korea? Watch him just like fuck the couches of every nation on earth in his quest to overturn all authoritarianism everywhere, except for the United States. Still working on that one. Yeah, send JD Vance to North Korea next. Exactly. Yeah, same wavelength, okay? Same mental wavelength. And I just have to say, like, this was a pretty wild outcome, right? Like, Viktor Orban was defeated handily by his opponent, Peter Magyar. Essentially, you know, I want to describe a little bit about what went on in Hungary. Why was Viktor Orban such a political powerhouse? And it's largely because he virtue signaled constantly on essentially conservative culture war issues, while simultaneously controlling 80 to 90% of Hungary's press, meaning that independent media was practically non-existent across vast swaths of Hungary. It allowed him to be able to, you know, there were still elections, but it had this soft authoritarianism that, you know, made this a liberal democracy functionally under his thumb for the last almost 20 years. To understand what has been happening in Hungary, have any of you ever wondered, hey, why does Turning Point USA operate in Hungary? Hey, why are all of these conservative organizations like bringing Viktor Orban over to America to speak to American conservatives? Why is Steve Bannon? Why are all these prominent conservative people associated with the Hungarian government? I mean, like Dennis Prager was going over to Hungary, like all kinds of different conservative figures from across like the political spectrum, all would go on essentially pilgrimages to Hungary for years and years and years. And essentially what happened here is that in a lot of different ways, American conservatives considered Hungary essentially a test bed, a way to test out different conservative policies to see how they could contort the American system into becoming an illiberal democracy wherein Republicans could just perpetually hold power, right? I mean, essentially what's happening here is that Viktor Orban's government just became too overtly corrupt, too noticeably broken to function, and people had enough of it. And Peter Magyar, by the way, talented political figure, has deliberately kept an incredibly large tent in order to try and topple the Orban government. And it's going to be interesting to see exactly what happens as a result of this, because he was delivered a supermajority, which effectively allows him to reshape Hungary and his political party to reshape Hungary and be able to kind of clean house, clean out the corrupt politicians, etc. And so what is interesting here is going to be to see how things develop from here, because it opens the door to a lot of possibility. You know, will Peter Magyar's administration roll back the anti-LGBTQ reforms that were passed underneath Viktor Orban? Basically, a lot of the Hungarian domestic policies were causing a constant deluge of immigrants out of the country. People did not want to live there anymore. Young people did not see a future in Hungary. And so this political win represents an opportunity that is, for Hungarians, world-changing. And it also shows that what happened in Hungary, we can do here. You know, if this is considered a test bed for Republican policy and it failed so spectacularly, we are positioned much better than the Hungarian electorate. You know, we are not going up against a guy who controls 90% of the media. We are not going up against a political party that enjoys, mass support, or even close to mass support. And that support is dwindling all the time, every fucking day. They just switched one right-wing party for another right-wing party. That is not the case. Isn't Magyar a conservative? I have trouble believing a conservative will get rid of corruption. Magyar is a conservative, but he's not the same kind of conservative. That's the issue you guys are running into. Is there's a difference between a conservative who is illiberal and does not believe in democracy, and a conservative who is liberal and does believe in democracy. Kind of the difference between what would be a good example? Like a George Bush Sr. and like a fucking Mussolini. I don't know. There's a difference. The breaking of this illiberal hold on the democratic process is a big deal. It's a shift of the Overton window for sure. Yes, conservatives are also right-wing, but I need you to understand there's a difference between how these two parties portray themselves. There's a difference between the policy goals of these two parties. There's a difference between the mandate given by these victories and defeats. Of course it's not I'm not portraying it as a fucking left-wing party, guys. I'm so frustrated right now. There's a difference between a Republican movement and a conservative movement that believes in the democratic process and one that doesn't. You worded it in a way that sounded like that. I did not. The way I worded it was trying to make a distinction between conservatives who believe in liberalism and conservatives who do not believe in liberalism. It's why I called them a liberal conservative and an illiberal conservative. I thought that was I thought that was enough of a differentiation here, but I guess not. And so what I'm trying to explain to you guys is that the political machine that perpetuated Viktor Orban got broken, and that is a victory. That is a good thing. Overcoming that machine is a colossal achievement. It is a good thing. It is a huge step in the right direction for a country that has been effectively the model under which the conservative movement in America has tried to mold the United States system. And so when we look at what has happened in Hungary, the reason it's good to see it fail in Hungary is because that's the machine they were trying to build here on a much larger scale. It is objectively good to see the Hungarian illiberal dictatorship fall, even if it is to another slightly far-right party. It is good for far-right authoritarians to fail. And it's frustrating to me for people to be like, well, it's just to another conservative. Of course, yes. Because the context that he's operating in, Peter Magyar, is within a far-right dictatorship. If you are building a huge coalition to topple that far-right dictatorship, you need a broad tent. Which means, by the way, that Peter Magyar's party does not have many defined principles. It's just far-right rebanding. You do not understand what is happening. It's not even a small W, guys. It's not even, like, my God. I don't know how to be clearer about this. The people who are trying to make a palatable, sustainable fascism that could oppress you indefinitely, they lost. Their machine got broken. That's good. That's not just a small W, that's a huge W. And so what I'm trying to say here is that, like, it presents a huge amount of hope. And so what I'm saying is, like, they're not, like the Peter Magyar party does not have a bunch of, like, defined conservative platforms because they left them deliberately vague to build a big tent movement. And that vagueness means that there's a lot of possibility in what the Magyar administration is actually going to wind up doing, right? And that's interesting because it's the first point at which Hungarians have, like, some kind of agency in the governance of their country for, like, 16 years. And so, like, that's good. It is good for them to have more agency. And if in their context they are more conservative than we might like, they now have the machinery to be able to move farther left more effectively. And that is good. I guess what I'm trying to get at here is that there is now a path on which the Hungarian people can go that bring them towards a better, more inclusive, more equitable society for everybody. Obviously, it might be possible that they're not going to take that path. But the fact that it's open at all right now is a huge win. I've been spending the last, like, decade of being aware of politics, hearing a constant trickle of stories out of Hungary about, oh, well, I guess, trans people can't exist there now. I guess gay people can't adopt children there anymore. Gay marriages aren't really recognized by the state anymore. Well, I got, all the LGBTQ people that can are trying to leave the country. And it's going to take time to undo the damage of these conservative policies. The possibility to undo it has now opened up. Something that was previously considered impossible, like 5 years ago. It's a new day, and that is a good thing. Sorry, Jack, I didn't mean to derail. No, it's fine. It's just, I get frustrated because, like, I'm trying to explain this, but I also understand that there are going to be people who don't get it. But my enthusiasm and my tone, I'm trying to make it clear that this is a big deal. And it's not just replacing one conservative party with another conservative party that believes the same things. That's not what this is. And people trying to reduce it to that are just wrong. And so here's a direct quote from Viktor Orban, by the way, from 2023. Hungary is actually an incubator where experiments are done on the future of conservative policies. He was talking about that. He was talking about his own country as the place where America was testing its conservative experiments. And that experiment has failed. Here's part of Peter Magyar's victory speech here.
Köszönöm nektek, hogy elhittétek, hogy meg lehet csinálni. Köszönöm, hogy elhittétek, hogy megváltoztathatjuk a sorsunkat. Köszönöm, hogy elhittétek, hogy a saját történelmünket.
Maybe I should just read this out. Thank you for believing that we ourselves, the Hungarian people, write our own history. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Köszönöm.
Today, the Hungarian people said yes to Europe. They said yes to a free Hungary. They said yes to represent them, to help them, to put the country in order. They said yes, because this is a Hungarian government, the responsibility of the Hungarian government. I call on the outgoing Prime Minister to act as an executive government from today, and not to make any decisions that would tie the hands of the next government, the Tisza government. Like, I want to emphasize here, the size of these crowds kind of undersell it a little bit. Like, Hungary had over 80% democratic participation. The highest turnout I think they've had since, like, the Soviet era. Hungary will once again be a strong ally in the European Union and NATO. From now on, we will not be a country without consequences. Those who stole the country must take responsibility. Dear fellow countrymen from Fidesz, I know it's hard to live with defeat, especially a big and well-deserved defeat. I know that you are also maybe angry with us, maybe even with me personally, because being in the opposition is difficult. It is difficult to see politicians in power who are not loved. I know it's difficult. But I here today, Peter Magyar, promise you that I will also be your Prime Minister. I will be the Prime Minister of all Hungarian people, and I will work 24 hours a day, every day of the week, to heal the wounds so that we can accept each other, even if we have different political views. I will represent you too. God, the fucking Iran Lego videos. And I just want to say, it is really, really, really important that we understand that this commitment to accountability, which has time and time again been a key point made by the Magyar campaign, is one that the Democrats here in the United States absolutely need to learn from. Democrats need to learn that when they come into power, there needs to be actual accountability. Actual fucking accountability. People need to go in front of, juries of their peers. There needs to be legal consequences. And so I just gotta say, when we're looking at, what Donald Trump might do and what the Trump administration might do, having a kind of awareness, a profound and persistent desire to hold these people to account in a court of law, that is something that the Democratic Party needs to pursue, and to pursue hard. It cannot simply be like, oh, well, just Donald Trump goes to prison, everyone else is fine. No. I want every fucking official that sent masked ICE goons into my city's streets, killed people in my community, kidnapped people in my community. I want every single one of those agents, every single one of their handlers, every single one of their managers, every single one of their people, all the way from the bottom of the organization all the way up to the White House. I want every single one of those people to stand and account for what they did to my city. All the way up to the top. And that is the kind of accountability that needs to be demanded. The same way it wasn't enough to just prosecute, one or two of the people who did the 2008 financial crisis. So many more of those bankers should have gone to prison for what they did, the economic turmoil that they unleashed on the working people of this country. That should have been a hard time. And so what I'm trying to say is that we need to learn from this. It's vitally important. Donald Trump is promising apparently pardons at the end of his term to anyone who came within 200 feet of the White House. I'm sorry. This is a news story from 2 days ago. Staff at Minnesota Deportation Hub received obscene Trump-themed challenge coins adorned with skulls. Operation Metro Surge, One Nation Under God. And I gotta be honest with you, I want everyone associated with issuing this challenge coin prosecuted. These people deserve no place in law enforcement, no place in any kind of government job, no place in a free and fair society outside of a prison cell until they've served their time and paid their debt to society. This is disgusting. Any kind of truth and reconciliation commission needs to come along with, hey, we need to prosecute this before there is any kind of peacemaking. And not only that, the level of criminal ignorance that the United States has put on display in what they've done with USAID, for example, and Doge. I shout out to Marissa Kabas, by the way, at the Handbasket. Y'all should be subscribing over here. Whistleblower says Trump officials thought USAID did just abortions, asked for Barney-style slides before gutting agency per new book. This is a excerpt from Nicholas Einreich's book, Into the Wood Chipper. I'm gonna read this book. It seems phenomenal just from this excerpt, and I'll link this into the chat so you guys can share it around. But I would argue that this is criminal levels of ignorance. Today, the room felt emptier, devoid of the expertise and experience that had so often directed policy from within its walls. Beside the three of us from GH, the group consisted of Joel Borkert, USAID's chief of staff, Adam Korzeniewski, White House liaison, Megan Hansen, director of policy, Paul Song, senior advisor to the administrator, and Ken Jackson. With Pete Marocco's new designation as deputy administrator, Ken's title was revised to acting deputy administrator for management and resources. Jason Gray, briefly the acting administrator, now back to chief information officer, joined as well. The group looked tired and bored, and I got the sense that we were not the first bureau to brief this group on our mission-critical functions that afternoon. Without introductions, Joel, who was eating a frozen Indian dinner, jumped right in. Quote, "In full transparency, we're drawing down USAID," he said. "We'd like you to walk us through your mission-critical functions so that we can close things out smoothly. What are the key priorities that we need to keep working on in GH, and the staff needs to carry them out?" Drawn down, close out, the words he dropped so casually rang in my head. Our global health programs didn't concern him. He was only interested in the quickest way to shutter the agency. I knew this would be my only chance to make him see why our work mattered. "Thanks, Joel," I began. "With the current pause on foreign aid, we're primarily focused right now on the waiver to restart our life-saving activities. But emergency response is only a tiny fraction of our work. So much of what we do is strengthen sustainable health systems around the world for long-term health improvements. Let me tell you about the work as well as some of the more urgent needs." Joel, who'd been checking his watch, shrugged and took another bite of his microwave paneer. Just as I was about to go on, Paul Song spoke up. "I'd just say stick to the life-saving stuff," he said. Aside from Jason Gray, Paul was the only career official representing the front office in this meeting. My only prior engagement with Paul was the Ebola briefing on Monday, after which he had asked for the names of the meeting's participants, who had been the only staff spared from administrative leave that day. Paul had been a relatively junior Foreign Service officer until recently. When he'd somehow ingratiated himself with our new political leaders, now the political appointees seemed to look to him for strategic advice on how to tear down the agency, and he appeared to relish his newfound influence, which was affirmed by his seat at the center of the conference table. Joel and the others nodded their agreement. Disappointed but not surprised, I began to describe various life-saving components of USAID's global health portfolio, highlighting how we prepare for and respond to emerging pandemic threats, support the diagnosis and treatment of tuberculosis, malaria, and HIV, and immunize millions of children from the deadliest childhood diseases. I spoke for about 5 minutes, focusing primarily on our infectious diseases work and hoping to keep the attention of people who seem to have no experience or interest in global health. When I finished, the room was silent, the political appointees looking at one another in what appeared to be disbelief. The silence was broken by Ken Jackson, who chuckled softly and shook his head. Wow, there really is so much that USA does that we never knew, he said. This is the story that needs to get out there. Joel, also smiling, chimed in next, echoing Jackson's amazement. I had no idea you did all this, he said. As a Republican, when I think of what USAID does in global health, I assumed it was just, abortions. And I'm going to, again, please read the entire piece here, because this isn't by any means the only thing in this excerpt that is just unspeakably evil. They put a bunch of dipshits in charge of drawing down USAID who had no idea what the agency even did. And when it was explained to them in a 5-minute long presentation, they just were bemused and then shut it all down anyway. And what I'm trying to say is, when we talk about future accountability, these evil, ignorant dipshits who sentenced millions of people, primarily children, to die around the world so that they could serve their own political ambition, they need to go in front of a judge and a jury. This is criminal. And I could not, if you put a gun to my head, I could not tell you what law it breaks, but I can tell you that it is wrong. And I can tell you that in order for there to be any kind of reconciliation and moving forward as a country where those of us in the public believe in accountability, believe in our system of justice, believe that our country is capable of doing better and good things, these people who have killed millions need to have their day in court. And if they don't get their court here in the United States, then they need to face it in The Hague. And I just want to throw out there as well, worth noting, the Republican Party right now is really afraid of looking out of touch on key issues because the party keeps appealing to our loony folks, according to a report. And also according to Senate Majority Leader John Thune. You're worried about looking out of touch. You embraced a fucking vice president that thinks UFOs, anything that's unidentified in the sky, is a demon. You elected a raving madman as a president, not just once, but twice, who's posting pictures of himself depicted as Jesus Christ. There is no salvaging the idea of a moderate Republican who is a capable lawmaker and capable of reaching across the aisle. You've poisoned the well. The current conflict about what will be the successor to the Republican Party is not going to be from within the Republican Party. That current conflict is in the Democratic Party right now. That full stop. The neocons have all left the Republican Party. They're in the Democratic Party now. That's the entire mission of the Bulwark, if you guys are familiar with that outlet. That's what Third Way exists to do. The next schism isn't coming from the Republican Party, it's coming from the Democratic Party. My prediction is the Democratic Party is going to split into two different groups. And the neocons will win the party civil war. Yeah, if you sit on your ass with your thumb in it, I guess. But, if you and people like you aren't lazy fucks and actually do something about it, then they won't. Full stop. They can only do this if you let them do it. It's why I talk constantly about the need for you guys to get involved on the local level. It's why I constantly talk about the need for you guys to get involved on the local level, whether it's with your local DSA or your local Democrats. You guys need to get involved. It's super, super important. It's the only way for us to unfuck this entire situation we have found ourselves in. Guys, in YouTube chat, stop giving this person so much attention. They're the same troll who's been AI posting the entire time. They use the same talking point every single time they come in here. Stop giving them attention. That's why they keep coming back. Notice the throwaway numbers. Just like it's the same guy. But I just want to remind you guys that what happened in Hungary is a reminder that we are not condemned to live under the boots and the heels of billionaires and millionaires. We are not condemned to be like powerless in the face of this oppression. We are not condemned to be oppressed. If Hungarians can do it, you can fucking do it too. This idea that you are doomed to fail, that we are doomed to fail because we are just small workers and they're big, strong capitalists with millions or billions of dollars. Like, that's just quitter talk. Have you guys never watched a movie? Have you guys never played a video game? Have you guys never ever encountered a story where people overcome challenges to topple or defeat oppressive elements in society? That is the entire history of our species. And we are by far blessed with far more resources, far more organizing power than so many other groups in this world who have been oppressed to a much greater extent. I'm not saying we're doomed to fail, just destined to struggle. As it has always been, every person who has ever lived on this planet is destined to struggle. And that is something that makes us human. That is the human existence in a nutshell. We are born into a world full of flaws, full of danger, full of everything that wants to kill us. Exposure to the elements, contact with other animals, contact with one another. And yet, we have built functional societies. And yet, we have built wonders beyond comprehension. And so all I'm saying here is that we have always been part of a struggle. You right now, you are in the same struggle that peasants 1,000 years ago were in. And we have made so much progress since then. We have destroyed the absolute God-given right of kings. We have set up a democratic state. We have levers of power available to us. We have more capacity to communicate and organize with one another than ever before. And I think we can get a few people to go to some local goddamn meetings. Full stop. I don't the only thing stopping us from doing it is making the commitment to do it. Just commit to do it. Commit to do it and show up to those goddamn meetings. Yeah, we just shot like a fucking spaceship around the moon and brought them all back. We have been under the boot of would-be oppressors for the entire history of humanity. And our job is to keep lifting that boot off of us. Because if we stop lifting, it crushes us. And it doesn't just crush us, it crushes our children and our children's children. It destroys a world where you can envision your kid living in a better one after you're gone. And all I'm saying is, that struggle never ends because we will never get to the perfect world. But we have to fight for it anyway. I'm going to play one last clip for you guys. Again from Peter Magyar.
We have to adopt a lot of things on the first day, including anti-corruption measures. We have to submit the application for Hungary to join the European Public Prosecutor's Office. We have to set up the National Asset Recovery and Protection Office. We have to accept, we have to examine everything. There will be a handover, the exact status of the Hungarian budget, and in general in all ministries, in all background institutions, we have to review the exact situation of how the country is handed over. And if these are in place, then after that, as we said, My first trip will be to Warsaw, the second to Vienna, and immediately after that, the third to Brussels, where we have to discuss the return of our EU funds. This is extremely important because the deadline is very tight to collect and use several thousand billion forints. These resources are in great need of the Hungarian economy, Hungarian companies, Hungarian farmers, Hungarian hospitals, the Hungarian public road system, and MAV, Hungary's railway company. We consider it very important to strengthen Hungary's position in the European Union and NATO. We will certainly have debates with the European Union, as every member state has, since every member state represents its own national interests in Brussels and Strasbourg. There is no problem with this. We consider it very, very important to bring EU funds home. We consider it very urgent. By the way, this is not only in the interest of Hungary, but also in the interest of the European Union.
It's worth noting that part of his reasoning for breaking with Viktor Orban in the first place was so that he could pivot the country towards the European Union and in the process free up a sizable number of billions of euros, I believe $35 billion total, that the EU tied up and tied to Hungary achieving different political thresholds. I believe there's like 27 different conditions for them to free up that money. But essentially, he's trying to make good on this so that these billions of dollars can flow into different promises that he's made, right? One of the things, by the way, that his victory means is that up to this point, Hungary had been vetoing a 90 billion euro loan to Ukraine. And I think that this is going to, they're going to stop vetoing that loan.
We consider it very, very important to re-strengthen either the Czech-Hungarian or the Polish-Hungarian relations. At TISA, we consider it particularly important to strengthen the cooperation of the Visegrad Four, to re-establish a strong Central European alliance, even the expansion of the V4 alliance towards Austria, Croatia, Slovenia, or other countries. This is not only in the interest of Hungary. This is also in the interest of our Czech friends, our Polish friends, our Slovak friends, or even our Slovenian and Croatian friends. The point is that we would like to see a very strong Visegrad Four.
And this is in turn going to lead to, I think, some positive changes in regards to the Ukraine conflict. That $90 billion might in fact be something that can possibly break the tide. Because again, the Ukraine war is still happening. Russia is still in the process of invading Ukraine. That is still happening. I mean, it's getting weird, to say the least. According to Zelensky, Putin forces surrendered to Ukrainian robots when confronted by army robots after an advance carried out without infantry and without losses on our side. For the first time in the history of this war, an enemy position was taken exclusively by unmanned platforms, ground systems, and drones, he said on X. It's getting weird over there, but what a time to be alive, right? Viktor Orban tried to stop Magyar's run for the presidency by releasing a sex tape of him having consensual sex with his girlfriend, and he was just like, I fuck, and it looked good on him pretty much. Good for him. One last point before we close out this segment. Worth noting that the DNC has in fact adopted a resolution and passed it to hold Trump administration officials legally accountable for their crimes. So that's one piece of good news here in America. At the very least, the Democratic Party is willing to hold some Trump officials accountable. Now, the degree to which the Democrats will actually hold Republicans accountable remains to be seen. However, I will quote this part here. Therefore, be it resolved that the Democratic Party is steadfastly committed to government officials at all levels being held fully and legally accountable for all crimes and abuses of power committed while in office, and be it further resolved that the Democratic Party is committed to governance and constitutional reforms to reduce the possibility of such lawlessness by any future American presidential administration and to restoring the rule of law and the trust of the American people. So, that's good. But if you want Republicans to be held accountable, folks, what do you have to do? What do you have to do? If you want accountability from your elected officials, what do you guys have to do? I've been saying it a lot. Let's see if you guys have, there you go. Organize! 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 You have to organize. Because power does not just bend to your intentions. Power does not bend to just your idle wishes. Power bends to organized power. By organizing together, we alone might be small, but all of us together are strong. And so you have to organize. You have to organize in your communities. And in every single one of your communities, I guarantee you have access to two different groups. You have access to the local Democrats and you have access to your local DSA. Okay? So join your local Democrats, radicalize them, make them more progressive. And then join your local DSA and make them more effective. Help them organize with local labor. And together, these two forces can prove to be a very potent combination. The DSA can function as the, on-the-ground organizing muscle that can empower different candidates within the Democratic Party to actually accomplish incredible feats. And by having people on the inside in the Democratic Party, we can coordinate with the DSA. It is a win-win. Organize with both. So if you need help taking your first steps, you can join the Discord, reach out to Dragonfly for help organizing with your local Dems, reach out to GamerG for help organizing with your local DSA. And also, folks, I'm going to encourage you, if you don't want to join the Discord, head over to riverboat.gg and you can find GamerG and Dragonfly over there and you can talk with them on riverboat.gg instead of Discord if you are so inclined. So, all that being said, folks, if you got anything out of this, hit that like button, leave a comment longer than 8 words. Helps in the algorithm for some reason. And also, folks, check out ImogeneOlivia.com, gender euphoric lingerie designed from the ground up for trans femmes. Also tested with cis men, cis women, non-binary folks. It is non-tucking lingerie that fits, that's elegant, that's beautiful, and sexy. Go check it out, ImogeneOlivia.com. Link down in the description. And let's keep on going.
Riverboat Jack is coming to town. All the viewers gather around. Twitch and YouTube and swishy streams. All that content is bursting the scenes. Politics, gaming, plenty more. Your sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's Discord.